Hello and welcome back to another episode of the EP Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McCaffey, the director at Hunter Rehab and Health, and I've got a very, very special guest with me today, Aaron Ishac. How you going, mate? Exercise physiologist. How you going?
Yeah, good mate. Good. Appreciate you having me on. Big fan of your podcast actually, and I love what you guys are doing. I listen to you guys religiously. So love what you guys are doing on your end, promoting our profession.
Thank you, mate. Likewise, I can see from LinkedIn and the social channels that you share that same passion for the profession. It's quite rare. There's not too many of us that are sharing that passion and really wanting to go out of their way to grow the profession. So it's a pleasure to have you on today, mate.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, it's good. I'm seeing a lot more EPs slowly come out of their shells. So hopefully we get more and more of us, whether it's producing content or just posting regularly and educating people. Hopefully more and more people know about EPs and what we do.
Yeah, let's hope so. Tell us a little bit about your background, mate. Where did it all begin in terms of the decision to go down the EP routes and yeah, start from there.
Yeah, well, I've always been into like my health and fitness. I've always been an active person. And originally, I guess, when I wanted to go to uni, I wanted to be a physio because I actually didn't know what EP was, never heard of it. And then, so I went on and I did a Bachelor of Exercise Sports Science. And throughout that degree, that's when I got introduced to exercise physiology. And I thought that was more for me. I liked the more functional side of things rather than sort of the more hands-on approach that physios take. So I thought I'm going to go down this path. So did my 3 years of exercise sports science, and then did a year and a half of my master's in exercise physiology. And then basically after my degree, I think I finished like 2017 around mid-year. So I think it wasn't until sort of end of that year or start of the next year I decided to dive in and start working as an EP. I was always working in the health and fitness industry as a PT or group instructor, so I was within the field always. But to actually go and work as an EP, I started working for a company called Active Therapy, who I'm still contracting with today. And I've also, in the last couple of years, been working in another clinic called InSync Health Clinic in Marrickville. So they're the main two companies I work for, as well as my own business, my own clientele that I see privately, which will be under the banner of Movement Masters. So got a few things going on at the moment.
Awesome. Great to hear, mate. I just want to touch on that a little bit more. So you were PT throughout your entire undergrad uni, or did you start that halfway through or third year, or when did you become a PT?
I think it might have been maybe end of second year, because there was a point where we covered enough subjects to get credited to be a PT. So I think it might have been maybe end of second year, roughly around there. So the last year and a half of bachelor's degree, started getting into it. And then, basically throughout from then on in, and I still do a little bit of like PT stuff now, I guess, like private clients. Obviously, I take an EP approach, but I just get your regular healthy pop that just wants to get fit, healthy, and work on their strength and conditioning.
Excellent. And do you think that's benefited you quite a lot going straight into that first job as a new grad, having that background, or at least that year and a bit worth of PT?
Oh yeah, definitely. I told EPs this when I speak to them. I say, if you get an opportunity to, get qualified while you sort of reach the end of your studies, if you can, and start working in the gym, as a group instructor or a PT, because you put you in an environment to apply the knowledge that you're learning from your studies, and it also gets you into the field. It allows you to start building yourself, your character, your communication skills, your interpersonal skills as well. So when it's time to go and work as an EP and deal with, I guess, more complex cases, which you'll probably see too. Like when I was doing group instructing, I was having clients say, oh, I can't do this exercise, my back hurts or my knee hurts. And that's when you can put your EP brain on and go, okay, how can I modify this? So you're already applying, those skills as an EP, but earlier on. So by the time you do work officially as an EP, you've already got that practice in already.
Yep. 100%, mate. I think it's a huge lesson for any listeners out there. My journey was exactly the same. So at the end of second year, became a PT, and there's a lot of other skills as well that's involved in it that are then traded into your career as an EP. It's time management, the ability to make appointments for yourself, the ability to build rapport with clients, communication, the ability to set some goals, achieve some goals, do some assessments, measuring. All these things will translate and give that head start going straight into that new grad year. but there's still obviously a lot to learn. So yeah, talk us about that new grad year, mate, that first year out of uni. What are some of the key things that you wish you knew back then?
I guess it's a few things. I mean, some of the stuff we didn't really cover too much was sort of, I guess, especially with like the admin side of things, like with NDIS, we'll cover DVA, Medicare, the background, like, the paperwork, the logistics behind it. Like, yes, we learned how to treat clients, but we didn't learn the actual, the paperwork, how to put claims through, how to refer, how to understand, doing an AHR, which you do, I guess you got to do the serial course, but just things like that, I would say would have helped a bit more I don't know if maybe it was the uni I went to, or I don't know if they've changed it now, but yeah, just maybe going a bit more deep into that would have made things a little bit more easier. But I guess, again, that's something you learn on the job as well. And then I'd say just the business side of things, the networking, having to visit doctors, going out and, going to networking events, and, the business, a little bit of sales as well, and marketing, and maybe even a little bit of, how to produce content, or, content produce or marketing from an EP standpoint. So yeah, I would say the business side of things is probably the biggest thing I wish that we covered a bit of, because it would have, and you'll still learn, even if you did cover it, you'd still learn once you enter the field, but at least you wouldn't sort of be shocked, and have to kind of chase your tail a bit. So that would have probably been handy. But then again, better late than never. And I guess the best way to learn is to get your hands dirty. So once you do get out there and you start working for a good company, or under somebody, to mentor you and coach you, that's also a good experience as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't think they teach it in the unis at the moment, but I think a key skill which just come to my mind just then since you mentioned that would be studying the fee schedules, the CIRA fee schedules, the NDIS fee schedules, the DVA fee schedules, to have a look at the line items and what we can actually charge for and bill for, because there's things on there that are quite hidden and we're not really aware of. Like, for example, there's one within NDIS called non-face-to-face service provisioning, which is actually you can bill for time spent, chatting with, coordinator of supports and helping them come up with their new plan. And that's something that I've found chatting with plan managers that they would love to review once a year with the allied health professionals, sit in a room with the participant and come up with their new plan, chat about goals. And that's what they want. And we can actually bill for that time. There's a line item on there, but we wouldn't know unless you're actually studying that 100-page document. So there's lots of little things. There's case conferencing in DVA. There's actually case conferencing in Medicare, line items there no one are aware of. So there's it's quite interesting. I think, not only for business owners, but for practitioners to see what value can they add as well, because it's all about adding value as well. So super important. But tell us a little bit more about the marketing side of things, mate. Tell us about your experience with GPs and GP meetings and nurses and things like that. I'm always curious because it's the unknown. You go into battle and everyone's got their own stories and experiences, mostly positive, mostly negative.
Yeah. It's a constant battle with a GP sometimes. So my first experience was when I started working with active therapy. One of my bosses, one of the co-owners, who's actually an EP himself, he took me around and we did a few, GP visits where, we'd organize a bit of a lunch in, and we'd go and, a couple of GPs at a time would come in, we'd have a chat, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, during their break, and just, build that rapport and just let them know who we are, where we are, what we do. And, you get, okay, that's great. Yeah, I might have a few clients. And then, you might speak to 10 GPs and, in my experience, you're lucky if, 2 of them refer to you. And if they do refer to you, you're lucky if they refer enough to you. They might refer at the beginning when it's fresh and they remember you. But then after that, sometimes it can fizzle out. So that's why it's also important to, I guess, maintain that relationship. And then again, I've done my own sort of running around to GPs. And the other thing too, it's hard to get to them as well. Like, you go and you speak to the receptionist and they're like, oh yeah, do you have a card? We'll pass it on. Where it's like, well, I can give them my card, but you don't know if they're going to get it. Something could come up, they could forget. So I guess it's breaking through the admins as well, and the administration staff, to actually get to the client. So I found that GPs have been quite, and a lot of them are old school too. So they don't have that, I guess, urge to like network like us allied health professionals do. So it's kind of hard. I found personally myself to network with GPs. It's a constant battle. But what I have found that is I found success with is networking with other allied health professionals, like other EPs, physios, podiatrists, chiros, you name it, nutritionists as well. And also of recent, I've been trying to really build my network of support coordinators and people involved in NDIS or rehab consultants on the injury management return to work side as well. I find that they're more open to network. Their personalities are a bit different. So yeah, that's what I've found in terms of networking. But I guess there's a lot to learn with GPs. There's probably a way to go about it. I still need to look at your webinar that you did as well, because I'm sure you've got a lot more experience on your end with GPs and how to break through.
Yeah. No, it's there's definitely some strategies within there, and I think I think you're right. There's a lot of old school GPs there and that aren't ready to change. And I think, but if we view it from the point of we only need 1, 2, 3 maximum relationships here, that's all we're really aiming for. So we're not going to satisfy everyone. You could, like in an ideal world, sustain your practice from one GP relationship. A GP will see 30 patients a day, 20 or 30 patients. And in an ideal world, if 50% of them have a chronic health condition, then he refers, 10, 15 of them a day. Like it's not unrealistic that could be a reality. So it really is about just a numbers game and finding that right one. And analogy I like to use sometimes in my team is, I've never been on there personally myself, but Tinder, you're not always going to find the right match. You just need to find one, don't you? And you go on a lot of dates that are unsuccessful. A lot of dates that are unsuccessful, and you're like, no, this person might be the right. No, it didn't turn out right. And you just need to get one, right? You just need to get one, and it takes time, years sometimes. And I think that's the same thing with GPs. But you're exactly right with allied health professionals, because it is much easier because they're just like us. They've got the same values, the same beliefs. They've been through the same uni program similar to us. So it is a lot easier to chat with them. I find it makes life a whole lot easier. And they've usually got a little bit more time as well. They've got some time to chat with you. So that's a great learning to leverage off the allied health space, because they're seeing all the similar clients as well. Is there one is there a particular allied health profession that is a stronger referrer than others, or you find that works well?
I mean, I guess I'd have to say physios, just because obviously with the 2 companies I work with, a lot of the referrals come internally from the physios, especially like work cover. Once they've done physio, the next stage is EP.
Yeah.
So I do find that, physios. But of recent, I've noticed that support coordinators, especially in the NDIS, are very open and willing to have chats and build their network of allied health professionals too. So I've been having a lot of chats with support coordinators within the NDIS field as well. So yeah, like you said, just their personality is really, really good. So I'm excited to see where that goes, because they're very open people. They're very caring and willing to exchange details. I went to a networking event yesterday, actually my first one, plan partners one, and people come up and introduce themselves and hand out their information. So yeah, it's really great. And just quickly before we move on, going back to what you said about the GPs, you're right. It's a volume game, and you only need 1 or 2 good ones. And if they refer 50%, which I personally think is conservative, I always say at least 1 in 3 that goes to a GP would probably benefit from an EP. They've either got diabetes or a musculoskeletal condition where they could benefit, but sometimes they're referred to like a physio, or where they could just come and see us. So yeah, I think 50% is conservative, but it's a good number to aim for.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So I think, it's been a little bit of time now since your new grad year. I think once we're out of uni, we've got to figure out a way to continue to learn. And we had a recent podcast guest on that mentioned that we've got to get 20 CPD points, but 20 CPD points is the bare minimum. We have to get at least 20. So he really encouraged people to be doing more, just learning and growing, because it's the only way we keep moving to the next level in our career. But what type of things have you done throughout last 5 years or so that have been instrumental in your learning and growth? Is it podcasts, books, a mentor? Has there been something that's helped you move to the next level?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, so when I got out of university and I had that little gap between starting as an EP while I was actually working as a PT, I got involved with like e-commerce. I had a friend who was doing it, and I just got involved, and I was doing it on and off for many years. And what that taught me a lot about marketing. It taught me a lot about customer service, and building rapport with customers and how to sell. And that dived me into the world of self-development. I had to start listening to podcasts and reading books on how to generate leads, how to market, how to sell, how to communicate. One of the best books I ever read was How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a great book on communication. And then those skills I then obviously transferred over to an EP, and I noticed how clients were reacting. My ability to communicate with clients from that developmental experience, showed. And they would always say to me, "Oh, I used to go to another EP, or I used to go to a physio, or whatever, but they're not like you," or things like that. Like, we like the way that you listen, or because sometimes as you would know, some clients just want to talk. They just want a mental release. So the ability to active listening, and all these skills have come from my experience through books and podcasts, and my experience running online stores and things like that. So I know it's a bit of a different world to an EP, but the skills are transferable. And that, I believe, has helped me become a great I'd like to say a good exercise physiologist. There's always room to improve.
Yeah, excellent. So what tips or recommendations would you have for someone who's 1 or 2 years out, who need to do their 20 CPD points? Where should they weight the majority of those points towards, in terms of what skills do you think are important for those new grads?
I would say, so with the CPD points, try to do courses in areas where you feel like you need a bit of improvement, so where you lack. So if you feel like I need to, or especially if you're working in a clinic and you're getting, say, a lot of knee clients, but you don't feel comfortable, do a few courses on the knee, specifically, if you can. But also, I would definitely say, because I'm pretty sure you can get a few points, because there's, on the ESSA website, there's like business-based courses as well. If you can do at least one business course, I would highly recommend it. If not, at least dive into the world of business, whether that's through podcasts. What you guys do is great. I'll definitely recommend EP Growth Podcast. Books, when it comes to books, don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe focus on maybe 2-3 key books. I personally recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People as a start, because that'll really work on your communication skills. And don't overcram. Yeah, so I'd say just maybe 1 or 2 really good podcasts, especially one that's specific to EP, and maybe one specific to like business and marketing, and then like 1 or 2 really good sort of books as well. And if you have the opportunity to, and you're lucky enough to, get yourself a mentor as well. Get yourself people who are where you want to be. If you can have someone who is already where you want to head to, that's a no-brainer as well.
Yeah, I think that's great tips there. And I think in order to achieve all those things, we need to look at his exercise physiology as a career now as well, because we're working at 38-hour weeks, seeing patients. We're like, oh, I don't want to spend the weekend to do that course. I want to spend the weekend with my mates. So I want to do this, I want to do that. But that's, I guess, kind of the mind shift change that needs to happen. You need to spend some nights reading a book. You need to spend some early mornings listening to that podcast. You've got your hours of seeing your clients. Like, there needs to be some extra curricular activities to go to that next level.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're lucky enough to, depending on, if you're a contractor or you work for someone, if you are able to like set aside a certain amount of hours a week on a certain day, or a couple of days a week, to say, okay, this is my day for professional development. This is when I'm going to do courses. This is when I'm going to, read my book, reach out to potential mentors. That'd be great too. That's something I'm trying to do as well myself, is I'm always on sort of the run on the road, because I'm very remote with my work. I'm very mobile. So I'm always back and forth with clients, always on the road. So I use that to my advantage to listen to podcasts, which is great. But in terms of, progressing forward and, developing as an EP, I need to spend time on that development. So I try to set aside a few hours now to do that, whether that's reading, producing content myself, and engaging with other allied health professionals as well. These things will elevate you in the long term. You shouldn't think short term, you should think long term. Where's this going to take me in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? Is what I'm doing now in line with where I want to go, basically?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, mate. I think just to touch on the reading books as well, one of my key insights into reading books is we should really take away 2 or 3 key actions from that book and implement them. We could read all the books in the world, but if you don't implement anything in it, then yeah, there's no point in just keeping it up in your brain. We need to implement those actions. So anyone reading these books, write down 2 to 3 actions and you learn to implement them in the next few months after that book. And that way, if you keep that habit up, then you've got to be making progress rather than saying, oh, I read 50 books a year. Okay, cool. Like, what have you implemented? None of it. So it really is about implementation and not volume of books. Like I said, it's just about level of implementation and action afterwards. So very important. Distinct.
Yeah, and a little hack as well, just touch on that is I've done this in the past where you can listen to the book and read the book at the same time. So you download the audio book and you read it. You tend to take in more because you're getting audio as well as visual feedback. So that's another little hack that people can try as well to retain information. And then you can also write things down, like you said, from each chapter, maybe and read maybe one chapter at a time. Because if you read the whole book, it's going to overwhelm you. Maybe just read one chapter at a time, write a little summary yourself, and then move on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't say I've ever done that before. Can you tell us a little about that? So you got the book open, and obviously, if you're reading, not aloud, you're reading sort of in your mind, but listening to it at the exact same time.
Yeah. So as you're listening to the audio book, you're following the words on the actual book.
Yeah.
So it's like if you were just reading it in your head as normally, but you've actually got someone reading it to you, but you're actually seeing the words as well as hearing the words as well. So just
I
a way
like
to
that.
help you. Yeah, it helps you retain and it makes you focus more, I guess, too. Because I know for me, sometimes if I'm listening to an audio book, especially if I'm driving, sometimes I can just lose focus and I forget what the person says. Or if I'm just reading, sometimes I'll just start thinking about something and I'm like, oh, what did I just read? So it kind of helps you focus a bit more too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I might have to give it a go because I'm an audio book person. I've maybe read 1 or 2 hard copy books in my whole life because I can't. I'll read 2 or 3 pages and realize I was thinking about the footy whilst I read those three pages and realize, oh wow, I didn't even retain that. So I can't read books. So I listen and retain everything when I'm listening. But that could be a little strategy. I'm going on holiday soon to Fiji, so I might take a book and try that strategy. Sit by the pool and retain it all. Give it a go.
Great place to give it a go.
Yeah, awesome, mate. You're obviously super passionate about EP, as am I, and it's so good to chat with people about that. I think it's important, to get a view of what your vision for the profession looks like in the next 10 years. So, what do you feel exercise physiology looks like in Australia? What changes do you think there will be between now and say 2033?
I would hope that we are seen as a premium service. I would hope that we are sought after and we are more people know more about us like they do with physios. Very rarely does a person say, oh, I need to see an exercise physiologist. They're more like, oh, I need to go see a physio because I don't know what an EP is. So, even now when I get someone who inquires about EP online at one of the clinics, I'll actually double check, do you need a physio or an EP? Because I'm surprised I mean, it's great, but I want to double check they actually book the right allied health professional. So I really am hoping that we are up there because, we're left out of a lot of platforms. Like, for example, Mabel, I put a post up the other week. Mabel is a great platform, fantastic platform. And they don't have EP. They've only got physio. And it's a shame because
did they get back to you on that, by the way?
No, they never did. They just said, "Oh, look at something. We'll look." Oh, they never responded to my post. I think they liked it, but when I was speaking to them at the time when I wanted to apply, they said, "Oh, it's something we'll look into for the future." So, but I mean, I haven't really seen anything yet. And then the other day, I was on it was called Health Engine. I think it was mainly GP based, but they did have like physio, podiatry, chiro, and I couldn't see EP. And I was like, see, this is the problem here. Yep. We need to be here. We need to be seen. People are using these platforms and more people are getting onto these platforms and we're not there. So how are we meant to help more people if, we're not on these platforms? So there's that. So hopefully we're on all the platforms that all the allied health professionals are on.
Yep.
And we're also taken more seriously, I guess. I mean, I feel like a lot of people can confuse us for like PT or a physio. So I guess I hope that people really understand what our role is and where we come in terms of improving their health, like, and that might come down to us as EPs to really, educate people and, produce content, or the way we market ourselves, or whatever it is, or, maybe it's going to within your local community, going and doing little talks, within your local community somewhere, maybe an aged care center or something. These all these things will compound over time, and our profession will be more recognized. But I think it is partly up to us. Obviously, we need the help of organizations, ESSA and all these other platforms as well. But I think we need to play our role as well, so that when people think of an EP, it's not just, oh, I'm going to go see an EP. It's actually saying, oh my God, I'm seeing an EP. Like, that's amazing. Like, I want them to get that feeling that this is going to transform their life, So I'd like to see us up there as a prestigious profession.
Yeah, I love that, mate. It's it's a really good vision to have, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But I feel, we need to be the change that we want to see in the world, and I think we need to think about what we can do. Obviously, we can blame other platforms and things like that, but we just need to figure out what's within our control. And hopefully with the listeners here, the new grads, the uni students, they understand the importance of promoting ourselves, understand the importance of marketing ourselves, building a social media platform, building those networks in the community. So important, because it's for the profession. It's not just for yourself. You're doing something, achieving something bigger than yourself here. You're growing a profession that's ultimately going to affect the health of Australia, and the world even. So it is an important task that we all need to be aware of. And then I'm interested in what's actually required to get it to a premium service in terms of charging, where we're at. I'm doing some investigating at the moment to figure out sort of what Australian EP clinics are charging, and would love to have an influence over all of them. Is put a line in the sand on this date, this month, this year, we all increase to this price. So that's my dream. I know not everyone's going to be on board, but if we all just all do it together, then it will seem the norm, rather than sort of one clinic doing it. Oh, they're way too expensive. This other clinic bulk bills down the road. Like, we can't have that disparity, because then one person's is still devaluing the profession. So I think potentially we can put little stepping stones in to get to a point where we're valued that way. Because I'm interested, how did psychologists get to that point where they're all $250 for a private session? They would have grown together and be like, oh, we're all doing it. That clinic's doing it. I'll do it. That clinic's doing it. I'll do it. Okay, we're a premium service now, which they are a very valuable service. But that's how we have to work together as a profession to get to that point, rather than saying, we'll bulk bill you a 20-minute session. That's not going to happen.
It's funny you say that. I actually had a similar thought recently about that. I'm like, what if we just, every EP, we all just agreed to charge, no less than a certain amount, because like you said, one EP could charge, 120, 150, for a 1 hour consultation, and you've got another EP charging maybe like 80, 90. So there's that discrepancy. So, and that, like you said, does devalue our service. And that's the other thing, especially for the new grads coming out. What they need to understand is how valuable our service is. And we're not just a physical service, we're not just physical exercise professionals and experts. We are experts in movement, but we are overall, we transform people's health physically and mentally. A lot of the times I've got clients who, especially older clients, they just love having a chat and doing a little bit of exercise. You know what I mean? They just want someone to talk to. They might, have things they want to kind of get off their chest. And, you feel like, oh, I haven't done much exercise. I've just spent talking, but that person got value out of the service. So when we start looking at ourselves more than just movement experts and actual well-being and transformation experts, then we will feel more confident in charging that, premium price.
Yeah, 100%. I think we need to understand that because within our clinic, we don't prescribe any exercises in the initial assessment. We want to spend the whole time, building rapport with them, understanding their goals, and then we might do some physical assessments. But then for the second session, they come back. So sometimes there might be, oh, all we did was chat, and I'm paying this amount. And you think about a psychologist, all you did was chat, and you're paying that amount. So it's you got to put value in the chat. It's like, what did we do today? It's educating the client on, this is what we've done. We've done some deep goal setting here. We've uncovered your why for the very first time. We understand what your true motivator is now. We've understand how your body works. We know what your limitations are now. We've done this. We've assessed with this. We've done that. And that's the value in it. So yes, we've just had a talk, but this is the value I provided in that time, and this is why it's going to cost this amount. So I think we need to understand that I think a lot of young EPs feel like we have to prescribe exercises, otherwise it's not valuable session. And young EPs will quickly chuck an exercise at the end. Like, I don't want to leave them with nothing. I'll quickly give them this exercise and demonstrate it incorrectly, and they don't know how to do it. And they go away and get injured between the first and second session. So it's okay to take our time with things and understand our value in the non-exercise prescription space is super important, because yeah, we need to understand that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, mate. Like that's a big issue that I had coming out. I felt like I had to do a ton of exercise with clients, and then I started to realize, hang on, sometimes just using that, especially that initial, to build that rapport, because if for that person to come back and feel comfortable with you, you need to have that rapport. So that's what I do as well. Like, I would say 70 to 80% of my initial consultation is building rapport, with a small part. Maybe I'll do a couple of physical assessments, and maybe prescribe a couple of exercises if I can, or give them something to take away. But majority of that session, as you said, is building rapport and building relationships for them to feel comfortable coming back. I mean, you could spend 80% of the session giving exercises and be, not interpersonal, not have any skills, and then not feel comfortable around you. They won't come back because they don't feel comfortable. But if you make them feel comfortable, they will come back, regardless of how much exercise you give them.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, mate. Last question that I ask all my guests. In your eyes, your experiences, your values, your beliefs, everything you've experienced so far in your life, what makes the best exercise physiologist? What qualities, what skill sets, what characteristics? What would make the best?
Yeah, I would say some of the stuff I mentioned. So first and foremost, the ability to communicate. That's probably, I would say, number one. Your ability to build rapport with the client. I know we say it over and over again, but it's so crucial. You need to be able to be patient, be empathetic. You're going to have clients who, you got to remember, they might have a physical injury, but there's an uh, I guess, result of that too. You'll have clients that might cry in front of you, they may break down, and you need to be able to handle that. So you need to have the right skills, to be able to handle that. I'm not saying it will happen a lot. It depends what areas you work in. If you work in mental health or things like that, it might happen a bit more. But yeah, you need to have those skills to be able to listen and be able to provide feedback and suggestions in a very strategic way, where you're not telling them what to do as such, but you're sort of working with them and guiding them, if that makes sense. So, rather than saying you need to do this, you just speak to them and say, what would you feel comfortable doing? Create that conversation, and then come to a kind of meet in the middle. Okay, what do they need to do? What do they feel comfortable doing? How do I meet in the middle there? So yeah, so that, I guess, communication skills is probably essential, I would say, first and foremost. And as well as your ability to work within a team, your ability to communicate with your colleagues as well, not just the clients, your ability to bounce ideas off each other, be open to criticism or, constructive feedback, especially if you're fresh, fresh out of university. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Be okay with making mistakes, and just be open, be a sponge. Your team leaders or, your bosses, they'll guide you, and they'll tell you, hey, look, this is probably a better way to do that. Don't take that, offensively. Take that, okay, great, I'm going to take that on board, because that's going to make you a better EP, 100%. And then your ability to network as well. Again, this all comes down to communication. Your ability and confidence to put yourself out there. Especially now, you're very lucky at this day and age. You've got LinkedIn. LinkedIn's fantastic for EPs and health professionals. I would say it's the number one platform. First and foremost, I would say, you can connect with whoever you want to. You can send them a voice message. You can send them just a normal message. And you can create that relationship. Go into networking events, like I said, is even better. So yeah, communicating, networking. And I'd also say, which can sometimes be forgotten, is practice what you preach. So you don't have to have the best physique as an EP, but I feel like some type of physical training in your own personal life, whether that's the gym, you might go to Pilates, you might walk regularly, you might play sport, whatever it is. I feel like, you got to kind of have something there, because if you're going to tell clients, if you're going to basically sell exercise, then you need to practice what you preach, if that makes sense. And the other thing too is you're going to have days where you don't want to train, which is even better. I have those days. Sure, we all do. So that when a client is in that position, because most of the clients you see won't be motivated to train, you can share that story and be like, you know what? I felt the same way. Yesterday, I felt tired. I didn't want to train. All I did was I went to the gym. I went on the bike for 5 minutes. I stretched and I went home. So then you start becoming relatable with them, you know? So that's a bit hard to do if you're not someone who, you know, exercises regularly. So yeah, I would say that as well. And then obviously business development, like we mentioned before, podcasts and books and things like that. And if you're lucky enough, have a mentor.
Excellent.
For sure.
Wow, mate. That's a great summary of what makes the best EP. And I hope everyone was writing notes down there because, yeah, you tick all those off and you are, seen very highly in my books. If someone's doing all that, that sounds amazing. And I think it's a great summary. There's no, weren't missing any points there. So awesome stuff, mate. Really appreciated the chat. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for being on the podcast, mate. And where can listeners find more about you? And I know you've got a podcast. You want to tell us the name of that as well? And I can put in the show notes.
Yeah, appreciate that. So my podcast is called EP Business School. So yeah, pretty much what the name suggests. We try to focus on, you know, producing content around the business side of things. So some of the stuff we basically talked about today, some are solo episodes of myself just sharing my own sort of tips and experiences, with also having guests on as well. So who share their experiences, and they're not always EPs. You know, I recently had a podiatrist on, which was great as well. So it's always good to get, you know, a business perspective from someone who isn't, I guess, biased to EP as well. So that's really good. So yeah, EP Business School. But if you want to reach out to me, the best way to get in contact with me is just through LinkedIn. Just Aaron, Aaron Ishac, Ishac. I'm sure you put it in the notes. So yeah, just either that or the podcast. Pretty much.
Awesome.
Reach out whenever you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Aaron. Been absolute gold, some gold nuggets there for the listeners, and I'm sure they'll take away and hopefully get implementing straight away.
Thanks, Ryan. You're a legend, mate. I appreciate it.
No worries, mate. Bye for now.